who has the most to prove in 2024? Now, most to prove is a bit of an interesting pretense for this conversation. Because when I say most to prove, I don't just mean pressure. Pressure is one thing. There's pressure anywhere you look. You're the quarterback at Ohio State, you got pressure. You're the head coach at Florida, you got pressure. But most to prove, I think, implies the doubt around some of these guys. So pressure, yes, but even more so pressure paired with the doubt of what they haven't accomplished to this point in their careers at their specific spot. Or for Ohio State's respect, Will Howard's new spot. And that's where I want to start here. I think Ohio State has an interesting combo pack here with extra sauce of Ryan Day, the head coach, and Will Howard both having, I believe, a good amount to prove. Now, Ryan Day, it's funny to say he has a lot to prove because he's one of the winningest head coaches in the sport currently. So does he have a lot to prove? If you were just to look at the numbers, you would say this guy's won north of 85% of his games, or 70% of his games, rather. This guy's a winner. Does he really have a lot to prove? Yes and no. No, because he's won a lot of games, but yes, because he hasn't won the games that if you're an Ohio State fan, you are itching and begging and hoping and praying, and in some cases, rolling on the floor, screaming, asking him to win, which is, of course, the game against Michigan, and then past that, winning a college football playoff game and a national championship. So that's the obvious one. We say it a lot, the Uncle Ben policy here with Ryan Day. With great power comes great responsibility. With great roster talent comes great expectations. Now, Will Howard, though, factors into this in a really interesting way because Will Howard transferred over from Kansas State, and when he got there, we've addressed this for a long time on this show, there's been a fair amount of the college football public that has been shouting Kyle McCord 2.0. That's your guy that's going to go beat Michigan, the guy from Kansas State. That's who you think is going to change the game for you? There is a lot of Will Howard doubters. I think even internally in Columbus, there is a quiet percent of the Ohio State fan base that is rooting for Julian Sayin to ultimately be the guy. So Will Howard, does he have a lot to prove? Well, he's won a Big 12 championship. He's played a lot of college football. But also when you talk about Will Howard at Ohio State, like he has a chance now to elevate himself from an NFL draft stock perspective and also prove to the college football public that, hey, put some respect on my name. If he's the guy that leads them past Michigan and into the college football playoff, and heck, if they win a national championship, like nobody is going to have anything more to say about Will Howard. And I think the conversation around Ryan Day drastically changes in a lot of ways. Now, DJ Uiagalelei, I think, also has a lot to prove. And the story arc for him is fairly obvious. Was at Clemson, was a five-star cat, didn't have the success that he wanted to have and that the Clemson fan base expected him to have following a guy like Trevor Lawrence. But the thing that I love so much about the DJU path here and the way that his story could finish, he is back in the exact same conference that he started in. Now, was at Clemson, then went to Oregon State, now he's at Florida State, and he is exactly where he started his college career. Same opponents, same environments, same level of competition. And so if DJ Uiagalelei has success, I think you ask the question, well, what changed? In a large way, you probably talk about the circumstances. I think he has, again, the best play caller he's ever had, Mike Norvell. I think he has arguably the best weapons he's ever had offensively. But to put a finer point on it, DJ Uiagalelei, if he has success in 2024, deserves a lot of credit for how he's changed. Because that's the thing that I think we overlook so frequently in college football. We see players on Saturdays and we say, that's who you are. You're not getting any better. Like, period, the end. That is who we define players so quickly. And DJ Uiagalelei has played a lot of college football. If he has success at Florida State, give him a lot of credit, not just for being able to evolve and become a better football player, but give him a lot of credit for being able to endure the external circumstances, to be able to block out the noise. I'll tell you what, man, it's very difficult. I have to imagine. I can't say this from personal experience. I have to believe it's very difficult to be a five-star quarterback, to be the perceived next great one at Clemson, and then to not achieve that. I think that comes with a lot of tough internal battles, probably a lot of tough emotional battles. I'd have to imagine a lot of self-doubt you have to battle through. And so for him to have success at Florida State, I would love that. I mean, I'll say this, we are very openly rooting for underdogs on this show, especially underdog story. For DJU to be able to have the year he had at Clemson, the career he had at Clemson, and then go succeed at Florida State, I would love that. Florida State and their title hopes, their ACC title hopes, rest with DJ Uiagalelei. They do not hoist that hardware in Charlotte without him doing his thing. So absolutely has a lot to prove, but I cannot wait to see what he does. Now, Lincoln Riley is a very, very curious very curious case this year in Los Angeles. Because USC, they moved to the Big Ten, and I think USC, over the course of the last couple of seasons, has been going through this refinement process. Like when you're allergic to something, the best case scenario, or the best practice rather, is to slowly but surely cut things out of your day-to-day life. Hey, I'm going to cut out dairy. I'm going to cut out bread. I'm going to cut out this. I'm going to cut out that. And eventually, you keep cutting things out until you start to see changes in that specific illness or allergy or whatever. USC has been doing that defensively. Hey, maybe it's the players. Let's go to the portal. Let's bring in a Bear Alexander. Let's bring in a Mason Cobb. Let's try and cut out the bad players, quote unquote. Well, that really wasn't the fix, was it? USC still struggled defensively. So this past season, you say, well, let's cut out the defensive coordinator. Alex Grinch, probably a year too late. If you're a USC fan, you feel like maybe you wasted Caleb Williams and his potential. It is what it is. You cut him out of the picture. Well, I think this is the year where if you're Lincoln Riley, you can prove that it's not a Lincoln Riley problem. Because if it's not the DC and it's not the players, there's going to be a lot of fingers that are definitively pointing at Lincoln Riley saying, okay, it's a philosophical problem. It's a philosophy problem. It's how you run your football team. And I have defended Lincoln Riley because I think the phrase Lincoln Riley defenses is always a little bit peculiar to me. Like when people say, well, that Lincoln Riley defense, they won't amount to anything. It's like, well, Lincoln Riley, I'm sure he's involved on the defensive side to a degree in terms of how they run their practice. He obviously hires the staff. It's obviously his football team. But like Lincoln Riley, I don't believe is sitting back there in the linebacker meeting saying, hey, we want to play this way. We want to have this technique against this kind of look. Like a Lincoln Riley coach defense, I think, is a little bit too much of a specific point to make. So I think it's a little bit silly to say, Lincoln Riley defenses. Lincoln Riley is an offensive guy. All right. Now, I will say this, though. At the end of the day, when you're the CEO of an operation, you're responsible for every single department, regardless of what you specialize in. So if Lincoln Riley's defense this upcoming season, the USC defense that is ultimately head coached by Lincoln Riley, doesn't have success, you start to wonder, okay, well, what's the issue here? We tried to get better players. I think they did that. We changed defensive staffs. Again, I think they upped in a big way on that side of the football. But if you don't have success again, you're like, well, Lincoln Riley, what's the deal here? And I'm not saying that you make any crazy changes. I'm just saying there's a lot to prove for USC and for Lincoln Riley in that respect. Quinn Ewers, I think, has a lot to prove this year. And it's funny to say that out loud because they just won the Big 12. They just made the college football playoff. I think most folks would probably group him into the top two in terms of the best quarterbacks in college football coming into the season. But it's interesting. There seems to be a whole lot of, but around Quinn Ewers. You hear people say, well, he did what he did last year, but can he stay healthy? Like, is he too fragile for the SEC? That's the next thing they say. Yeah, you did that, but it was in the Big 12. Yeah, like this is the SEC, though, now, brother. I don't know if you're ready for this. Yeah, but he lost Adonai Mitchell. He lost Xavier Worthy. He lost Jatavian Sanders. Like, those guys are really what made him who he is. If I'm Quinn Ewers, like, let's leave no doubt this year. Because all of those buts people are throwing at you, those are on the table, ready to be disproven. You got a whole new cast of characters catching the football for you. You are now in the SEC, and guess what? You got Georgia coming to town October 19th. All right? Stay healthy the entirety of the season. In an elongated season with the new college football playoff format, like, things are going to look a little bit different. So when you talk about Texas and Quinn Ewers and all the buts around them, I get some of the hesitations. I get some of the doubts, but I think what he did last year, for me at least, proved a point. And if he does it again in 2024 in the SEC, he drives that point home all the way. All the way. Now, last one I want to talk about here, an individual with the most to prove in 2024, or as much as anyone to prove in 2024, is Florida head coach Billy Napier. And I think when we talk about Florida, this is my gut on this, so I can't prove this without a shadow of a doubt, but this is kind of my gut on this. I believe that there has been more progress at Florida behind closed doors than what is actually being seen on the win-loss column. And that was a sentiment he echoed last week at SEC Media Days, but I think that's what's happening. Now, here's the deal. It's great to have progress behind closed doors, and I believe that you have to have progress in the shadows before it ever comes to light. But the reality is, in college football, it is a bottom line business. Like, you can do whatever you want behind closed doors, but it better eventually translate to that football field. Like, this is a show me year for Billy Napier and co. It is. This is a show me year. And a show me year, it doesn't have to be show me to where you go win the SEC or you beat Georgia. Like, I promise you, they would take all that. I promise you they would take that. However, I don't think you need that in 2024. What I need to see from a Florida fan, I need to see this is going somewhere. I need to see there's progress being made. Tell you a quick story here on this. When I was a single man dating my girlfriend, I was living with one of my buddies who was getting engaged and about to get married. And so the wedding is about an hour and a half away, and he leaves a few days early to go get ready and do his whole thing for his rehearsal dinner and all that. So I am told to go and get his ring from the individual that is custom crafting his ring. So I'm texting with him, hey, can I pick it up? It's like a few days before. He says, you know what, still working on it. Let me get back to you. I text him the day before. Hey, can I come get it? Hey, you know what, still working on it. Let me get back to you. Finally, it's the morning of, I'm like, brother, I need this ring. They're getting married tomorrow. I need this ring. I'm supposed to deliver it today. And I go to the shop, and there was no progress. None. There was nothing to show for it. And so I'm like, oh boy, we gotta have a conversation now. That's the thing with Florida and Billy Napier. I need to see some progress. I need to see this is going somewhere. Because the schedule is what it is. I've said it many times. We've talked about it ad nauseum. We all understand what the schedule is for Florida. It's Hunger Games, right? It is what it is. I don't need you to win 10 games, but I need to see some progress. I need to see it's going somewhere. And again, I think with Florida, they have the tools to do that. This is the year where it's a show me year to make that happen. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.